Rachel Jordan-Wolf. She's the Executive Director of Hope Together. And if you came on our Emotional Wellbeing course earlier in the year, then you may recognise Rachel from one of the videos with me going, "That's my friend." The Emotional Wellbeing course is one of the many resources that Hope Together have produced to help churches and communities. And it's a charity that we've recently started to support as a church. So it's really great to have Rachel here, and I'm sure she's going to share more about what Hope Together do as part of her talk today. Previous to that, she worked for the Church of England. She was the Director of Evangelism. I don't know if Justin Welby is still following you on Twitter, but that was a little bit of a pressure. She studied at Oak Hill Bible College. She has a doctorate, and she is married to Darren, who's a vicar in a church in Shoreditch. So life is very busy. Do you want to come up? That would be fantastic. On a personal note, we're getting a clap. Marvellous. On a personal note, Rachel and I have known each other for nearly 30 years, which we must have been like babies. Right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, newborns met in the ward or something.
Definitely. We were part of a slightly chaotic but absolutely fantastic house share for a couple of years in Clapham. And then Rachel was one of our bridesmaids. So it's a real joy to have her here today. And I'm sure you're delighted that as Jason's not here, I've got to introduce you.
Yeah, it's great.
I had a couple more stories, but Tim said no. So, you know. But let me pray, and that'd be great to have you speak to us. Let's pray. Father God, thank you so much for Rachel, for the woman that she is, for all the gifts that she has, for the skills that you've given her. Thank you so much for all the amazing opportunities that she has had so far to serve you in her life, and just for the way that you've been using her in different ways. And Father, I pray for this morning that she would know you with her as she speaks to us, that she would know what you want to share and your words to share with us. And I pray for all of us, Lord, that we would come and listen with open hearts and minds to what you want to say to us this morning. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Sue. Fabulous. So that was a great intro, wasn't it? So I'm Rachel. I was brought up in a Brethren church, but I feel like I had Pentecostal wings because my grandparents were involved in the sort of Welsh revival and the early days of the Assemblies of God church. So it's a really great mix, I feel, word and spirit. And then ended up in the middle of the Church of England as their national advisor in mission evangelism. That was after Youth for Christ and doing lots of other things. And now I am leading Hope Together, which is a charity. We just want everyone everywhere to know about Jesus. So that is our vision and strapline, and everything we do is focusing to help local churches and passionate Christians be better able equipped to introduce people to Jesus. And as Sue said, married, so Christchurch Spitalfields, the big church with columns if you ever go up to London by the market there, if you ever go up to the Spitalfields market, that is our church. We live in this amazing rectory behind it, which is also 300 years old. Very cold. And we live there. We've got 3 guys on the top floor and a girl on our floor, and currently have somebody on the sofa, as I don't know if you've noticed that the whole housing crisis of London, it's almost impossible for people to find anywhere to live at the moment. So currently she's on the sofa, but, you know, we're praying in faith. So that's how we live. And I love your family thing. I think it is partly my upbringing from the Brethren, which was like we were like this massive extended church family. That's how we did church. That's how we did life. That is just, we lived inside each other's houses. And then my husband came to faith in later life. He actually did grow up near me, but on the local council estate, but he had a very different experience of early years, and he came to life in his 30s. But when he read the Bible, he was absolutely convinced that Christians were supposed to be living in community, so much so that God spoke to him to give up his very nice he's very organised, 1-bed flat, and to then begin to live in Christian community. So he's still living in Christian community, so which is great. And we decided we did 6 months where we didn't, when we were just the 2 of us when we got married, and then we've been living in community since then. So there we are, background. So it's lovely to be with you, and it's fantastic to see that you have got a heart for church family, because I think there is something about church family right now that is the strongest message we could possibly have into a secular individual culture. because that's actually that's the culture we're pushing against as church. And what we are as a church family is, if you like, it's a prophetic call. So it's a prophetic call to open your home. It's a prophetic call to live with other people. It's a prophetic call to be church family together. It is completely countercultural to actually the push of the world for secular individualism. And that is why it's actually such a struggle sometimes to be church family, because every time you do that, you are modelling something completely countercultural in a world that is pushing people to be themselves, decide for themselves. Oh, goodness only knows. And actually, because there is accountability, we're doing this together, we're going to make decisions together. All of that is so different to actually the push of the world, and it's a real call. So I'm very excited about you. I'm going to have to catch up on your family series because I think I would love it. Today, though, I want to do a little bit dive. Actually, there was somebody who really needed to discover church family and want to look at John 4. Many of you will know this passage really well. I want to have a little look at the woman at the well, and I want to tie that into, so look at the woman at the well, tie that into some research we've done right now on evangelism and on mission, about what's happening outside of the church, to then work out how we as church reach out and do mission and evangelism. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to start by having a look at John 4. So if you've got your Bible with me, we're going to dive in there. So Jesus has been with his disciples. There's been an issue that he's been baptizing more people than John, and he moves on. He leaves Judea. He started going back to Galilee. But he had to go through Samaria. Chapter 4, verse 5. So he came to a Samaritan city called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired out by his journey, was sitting by the well, and it was about noon. A Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." His disciples had gone to the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria?" Jews do not share things in common with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you'd have asked him and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you've no bucket, the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us the well and with his sons and his flocks drank from it?" Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But those who drink of the water that I will give them will never be thirsty. The water that I will give will become in them a spring of water gushing up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I may never be thirsty or have to keep coming here to draw water." Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come back." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying I have no husband, for you've had 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you say that the place where people must worship is in Jerusalem." Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father seeks such as these to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When he comes, he will proclaim all things to us." Jesus said to her, "I am he, the one who is speaking to you." And the disciples come back. They're all like, "What's going on? How can this be happening?" And Jesus talks to them as well. And then he has this great verse in verse 36, where he says, verse 35, he says, "I tell you, look around you and see how the fields are ripe for harvest. The reaper is already receiving wages and is gathering fruit for eternal life, so that sower and reaper may rejoice together." She goes back, doesn't she, into her town, and she's like, "You have got to come and meet this man." So this woman who's been creeping out at noonday, avoiding everybody, goes back really powerfully as an evangelist and calls her whole city out to come and know Jesus. They're like, "What has happened to to Mildred, what's happened to her. And so they're so fascinated by this completely life-transforming encounter that she's just gone through, that they come to meet Jesus, and then they say, Jesus, you must stay with us. You must stay with us. And remember, this is Samaria. And so there's so much in there, isn't it? This is Samaria. This is not Jerusalem. These are not the Jews. God is doing a mighty work and showing what he's going to do, and that we all, as a people of God, will be, we are most of us, I'm guessing, are outside of the Jewish bloodline, but we have all been called in, and this is what there's a real power in that. There is so much in this passage. But something that I want to dig out is just some of the key things that happened in this encounter and what we can learn from those about our own mission and call to help everyone know about Jesus. Number one, I was rereading this yesterday. It was a bit of a day, and I noticed that Jesus was tired out from his journey. And that struck me. He was tired out from his journey. I don't know if you ever find yourself just tired out from the journey. You are just balancing so many things. The last thing you want, if you're really honest, is an encounter with a needy woman at a well. You know what? I just want to put the kettle on. If I could that is actually so often how I find, the last thing I want is an encounter with a needy woman at a well. I'm just tired out from the journey. I'm tired out from everything, spinning all the plates. And that really resonated with me yesterday as I was looking at this. Jesus was available. Now, he knew how to go and take time. He was really good at taking time with his Father and getting out and saying, I am off now. I'm going to go and seek my Father and have rest. But right at this particular minute, he's been on a long journey. He doesn't really feel like it. He's a little bit tired out, and he's sitting on a well about noon, and it's jolly hot. And he's tired and he's actually thirsty, but he's available. And that really spoke to me. I remember once on a train when I said to the Lord, I could see this woman coming into the train. I just had that hunch she was going to sit down and talk to me. And I said, Lord, I can only cope if I can get coffee first. So I went and got coffee and came back, and then she sat down and talked to me. So I think, God is very gracious with us. But isn't it interesting? It's at that moment, actually, when many of us say, I can't do that now. It's jolly inconvenient, isn't it? There's something about many of the people that Jesus ministered to and spoke to that he met on the way, to, from, going, coming, which I find really interesting. Sort of not necessarily on the planned routine, but he's available. And I think that's just one of those important things. So the big question is, how available am I to the people around me who maybe need me at this moment to help them to find Jesus? Now, interestingly, so we've done this research. I'm going to show you the report, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of that for a stat on being available. So this is the report. I've got a few copies you can have. We wanted to do it to find out what was happening outside the church, what's happening outside of us, to find out how we might reach people and what's going on. And so one of the things, for example, we wanted to know was how many non-Christians know one of us? Because that's kind of important, isn't it? So are there 3 of us left? Sometimes when you read headlines or scroll through social media, you think there are 3 of us left. We live in Portsmouth. We are 95, and that the lights are going out next week. But that's actually not true at all. There's a lot more of us. There's a really good team of Christians in this country, which you'll get encouraged from when you read this report. But of those, we want to know how many non-Christians would say that they knew one of us, a practicing Christian. And it's about 53, just over half of the non-Christians in this country know someone who they would call a practicing Christian. Now, interestingly, we did this research first in 2015, and it was 68%. So the pandemic has had a really dramatic impact on the reach of the church. The pandemic has had a really dramatic impact on the reach of our church because our worlds have shrunk. We've sat on less wells, we've travelled on less trains, we've gone to less clubs or activities or wherever it is that we might meet people who don't yet know Jesus. But our world has shrunk. And so we've actually got only 53% of the non-Christians who perhaps know one of us. And it's particularly in those relationships when we ask people how they also found faith, it's particularly through friends and family that people do find faith. So if we've lost that reach, some of the call now is to sit on more wells or wherever it is. A well was a place of community. It is a place where people have to go if they're going to survive. It's a place where they have to go. It is really like the supermarket. It's more, maybe it's the, I don't know what your supermarket is here, whether it's Morrison's or Waitrose or Sainsbury's, but it is that place because everybody eventually has to go, unless, of course, in the pandemic we all learnt to order our food and take it home. So actually lots of things in the pandemic have isolated people from each other in quite a dramatic way. We've learnt traits to work from home. There's less opportunity to stand in a coffee queue. We've ordered our food from the supermarket. We don't have to go and mix with anybody. And I wonder, actually, if we did a survey of the shrinkage of actually all those different links, which is going to have an impact on us as a church when we're trying to reach people. So that's the first thing. Where do we go? Where are the wells? Where are the wells where people are? Where are the places they had to go to the well, otherwise they were going to die of drought. They were not going to have any water. It's interesting, isn't it? And where do we need to be to sit, to be available at the places and the junctions in people's lives where they still have to go? And even thinking about the supermarket, that is no longer actually as the pandemic. So the pandemic has shrunk the reach of the church. And most people do come to faith. If they're coming to faith, it is a link with somebody who's friend or family. So we asked the non-Christian, did they know someone? We asked who that person was, and we discovered that they were mostly friends and family. But the great thing is, we then asked them what they thought about that person. And they think that we're friendly, caring, and good-humoured. Of course we are. Look round the room. What an amazing group of people we are. So, which is, again, really good because we had a whole list of negative traits, but they didn't tick those. They didn't say we were narrow-minded or judgmental. They ticked that we are the open, warm people. And that should help us, that actually when people know us, they like us, which I know sounds profoundly crazy, but actually really important as the Christian church, that we're really fabulous people. We are the people on the street who are most likely to make those connections and be the person someone can come to when they're in need. So here's Jesus at his well, and the number one thing that he does is he is in the right place at the right time, and he's available for an encounter. He's in the right place at the right time, and he's available for an encounter to bring someone to faith. And there are so many things in there that can get in the way that we might not spend the time in the places where people are who are thirsty. This is a deeply thirsty woman in every possible way. She's a deeply thirsty woman in every possible way. Great. Then I love it. He starts where she's at. He doesn't come in with a new topic or some deep theology. He really starts where she's at. Well, we're at a well. So I'll ask for a drink of water. It's really also interesting, isn't it, that God, the amazing God who created the world, starts by asking a woman who's an ostracized woman for something. He's got all the power in the world, and he makes himself vulnerable to ask her, and obviously we find out she's a very vulnerable woman, to ask her for a glass of water. I love that. It's a real power control thing that he switches. He switches that dynamic, and he makes himself vulnerable on her. Oh, I'd love a drink of water. Could you get me one? And that's a really interesting dynamic when we're reaching out to people. Actually, how can we sometimes give them? Maybe they actually want to bless us, even from their place of vulnerability. And she was a very vulnerable woman. We know that. So she's had 5 husbands, and the man she's now with is not her husband. This is not because she's like a secular individual culture person. If we put that reading onto it, we think she's making this as a choice, life choices, because we're in the 21st century. She is not making a life choice for this decision. This has happened to her. Women didn't just go, do you know what? He snores, so I am just going to have to get myself a new husband. That just wasn't what you did. Your security, your position in the world was dependent. And she couldn't just say, well, do you know what? I think I'll just go and get a job somewhere now. That wasn't her choice. She didn't have choice like I have choice. So sometimes when we reread this passage, we think, oh, she's sort of a secular individual in the 21st century making choices to divorce men, perhaps because of the way they snort. This is happening to her. She didn't have the choice to divorce someone. They are choosing to divorce her each time. And now she's been left in a situation where this person will not marry her. But if she can't just go and get a job, that isn't the reality of the world that she is living in. And very often we read this, it's like, oh, she's just choosing making relationships her idol. No, it's her security. She's got no alternative than the life that she is currently living. There isn't somewhere else for her to go. She can't up sticks, move to Jerusalem and get a cracking job. Not happening. Just wasn't going to happen for her. So I think sometimes, again, we have to remember. So this is a really vulnerable woman who's, if you like, got to the end of the road, and then the God of the whole world asks her for a drink of water. Isn't that beautiful? And he has stopped in his busy schedule of rescuing mankind. He has stopped on the side of a well when he is tired and made himself available to her. It's so beautiful. And made himself vulnerable. Can you give me a glass of water? And started a conversation with somebody that nobody else is conversing with. I love it. There's such power in this. And so he asks for a glass of water. He starts with where she's at, and they have this fantastic, isn't it, beautiful conversation that unfolds. And when we did this research, we wanted to find out where people were at. What is the average person sitting on the side of the well in the UK, busying through the supermarket, sitting in Costa with their coffee? I think that's probably the closest maybe watering hole if people can afford to go to Costa. What is their world like? What do they actually think? What do they believe? One of the things we asked was, what do people believe about the resurrection? And to pause for a minute. How many percent of the UK population do you think would believe in the resurrection of Jesus from the dead? And would be willing to tick that on a poll or survey? Have a little think for a minute. I'm going to tell you, it was 44% in 2015, and it's 45%. You're all looking shocked, and so you should. Now, there was two categories. There's a category for believing it word for word as it happened in the Bible. That's about 19%. And then there's the slightly more wobble factor, whereas they don't know what they quite believe about it, but they do believe something. I thought we were in a really secular world where everything had proved things that resurrection didn't happen. So when we first did this research, no one believed it. Quite frankly, nobody. I mean, we had the then Archbishop of York sent to me. He went, well, it can't be true. So we redid it on a much bigger scale, and we found it was still true. And then the BBC did this same question in 2017. They wanted a heading on Easter Sunday for their newspaper. They were going for the heading, more people believe in reincarnation than resurrection, death of Christian Britain. That is the headline that they wanted. They did this research. They discovered that way, way, way more people believe in the resurrection of Jesus than in anything else. But they did find out that of the number of people who tick Christian, 13% of the people who would say tick they were a Christian didn't tick that they believed in the resurrection. And that is the headline they ran with. 13% of Christians don't believe in the resurrection. Is it the end of Christian Britain? I was beside myself. I'm like, but 44% do. Can't that be a heading? And not all, but no, because what the heading they wanted was the heading they wanted. That's why it's really important as Christians that we go and find some truth, because truth sets us free. So a lot of the people that we're sitting on a well with, or having a coffee in Costa with, or wherever it is that God has placed you in the garage when you're getting your MOT done, worth finding out what they believe before we assume that they don't believe any of this. Does that make sense? Where are we on the journey? Where are they on the journey? How beautifully important is that? What do you think? Where do you coming from? Because that's such an amazing situation. So many people at the moment, they definitely want hope for something after life. That's what that is. That's what that tick is. There's something. I can't quite name it. I don't quite know what it is. I'm hoping. How exciting. So, hey, that's what I call a white harvest field. About 20% think Jesus is God as well of the population. About 20% think Jesus is God, which again is a great conversation. What do they think of Jesus? And if they don't think he's God, a lot of people think he's a prophet, and an awful lot more people think he's a prophet than a Muslim in the population. So it's just a common thought that he is a good spiritual leader or prophet. How exciting! Let's unpack that. Let's discover about this Jesus that you think is something. It's what an opportunity. I mean, this lady has the absolute opportunity because she's sitting on the well with him. Right. So here she is sitting by the well, and Jesus starts with where she's at. Can I have a glass of water? And then she's like, well, yeah, but she's like, how is it that you, she spots it, how is it that you, basically a Jewish man who's looking pretty together, is asking me, a Samaritan woman who's obviously out here at noonday to avoid everybody, to have a glass of water? It's all wrong. He's just done the power dynamics, all wrong. And she knows it. She's like, whoa, I don't quite know what's going on here. And then he says, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that's saying to you, give me a drink, you'd have asked me for water. Okay, you haven't got anything to draw water. I'm all a bit confused. But she's, you can sense it, can't you? She's just like, who are you? Is that not her profound question already? Who are you? There's something about you, and I can't put my finger on it. Who are you? And I think, actually, when we engage with people have the same response, don't they? Sometimes when you go to do something good for someone and they kind of go, why are you doing that? There's that, who are you? And they're trying to work out who we are. And the closer they get to us, the more beautiful they discover that we are. And the power of what you have together here as church family is dynamite. It's absolute dynamite. The women at the well, the people that you can invite into this church family to experience your love and your sense of family, that is like the deepest drink they will ever get, because right now that is what people are thirsty for. People are lonely on a massive scale in our society. And we need to tackle that within church family, because that can happen within our midst. And we need to be the answer for it outside, because there is no other great answer out there. There isn't a great answer. We really do have that hope. That is one of our deep thirsts that we have. Another deep thirst, we gave people a whole set of questions. We asked them, what were they asking? And another question people were asking was, will everything be okay? Now, we did this research just as we came out of the pandemic. Things haven't exactly improved. So I think, again, if we went to the streets and said, out of these questions, which one's resonating with you? People are still going, their world was quite stable. Before we went into the pandemic, people weren't really looking for that much help. I'd got my little roadmap. Life's going to get better and better. I can buy my latest thing. I'm aiming for this. But the world got shaken in the most extraordinary way through the pandemic. And it's still shaking. A war in Ukraine, an economic crisis. People don't know how they're going to meet their bills, pay for their central heating, feed themselves, feed their families. It's like the whole thing is being shaken. And at the back of the research, we asked people like you and me how we came to faith. Always helpful. So a big survey of Christians, how they came to faith. And if you look at the above 18-year-olds, an awful lot of us came to faith under 18, and what you're doing with children and families is brilliant. But when you look at the over 18s, the biggest key influence in bringing an adult to faith is a life event, positive or negative. We, right now, are going through national life event, followed by national life event, followed by national life event, followed by... and it's shaking everybody's worlds. And we're definitely not out yet. So yes, we're a bit like Jesus. We're sitting on the edge of a well going, do you know what though? All this is actually making us quite tired. We've been through a pandemic. We don't know how we're going to sort all this out. So we're quite tired. But at the same point, I think it honestly is the biggest mission opportunity that we've ever been given. Because so many people are going, will everything be okay? The other question that resonated across the generations, that one resonated more younger generations, right, was what happens when I die? Who's got an answer to that? Oh, let me think. Exactly, heaven. We know about heaven. We've got our hope. Everyone's hoping for a hope, but they don't know it. We've got the greatest good news to answer the questions that people are actually asking right now. How exciting is that? How exciting is that? We actually do. And people are asking those questions. We have an amazing opportunity. A life event after a life event after a life event has shaken everybody's world, and it's still shaking. And we need to be the people who say, just like we were singing, we trust in that lovely song, I Trust in You. People don't have a trust. They don't know who to trust in. They don't know what to trust in. The things they were trusting in have all gone absolutely, they don't know it's all wobbling. We have a trust. It's all right. God is foundational. He's on our side. He's going to get us through. We've got each other. We've got a church family. We're going to do this together. It's going to be okay. Well, you'll have to move into our house for now, and all your stuff will have to go to my parents' garage. It's going to be okay. If that's what we need to do, that's going to be okay. Do you see? And this woman, Jesus started where she was, and he unpacks everything in her life. He's really truthful, isn't he? I love that as well. He doesn't avoid the mess. By the way, this is messy. Whenever we bring people into our family, it's messy, isn't it? And he can see the mess. He can see this poor woman. She's been rejected, 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 and rejected. And this person won't marry her. How's she feeling? Absolutely at the bottom. So he's like, let's just get it out there. Let's deal with the mess. Let's just be honest. Now, how about some living water? Are you thirsty? Are you deeply, really, truly thirsty for something that makes a difference to the whole of your being and life? Yes. Yes, says the woman. Yes, you are the Messiah. Yes! And you can see that incredible response as she has this encounter with the living God, which is what we are longing for, isn't it? For all of those who are thirsty outside. And she's seen that God has actually stopped to be right next to her and to stop in that space and place. So I'm going to give you one more exciting statistic. When we talk to our non-Christian friends and family about Jesus, and it's about Jesus, so we're talking to non-Christians about Jesus, 1 in 3 of them have said they actually now want to know more about Jesus. Not all of them, but 1 in 3. And 1 in 3 want to encounter him or experience him for themselves. I'll take that. That's really encouraging. It's not everybody. But we could just get on a few more wells and find out who's thirsty. And if they want to meet Jesus, you lot have the skill set. I know it. So we've just got to make that, we've got to find those places of connection where they can come and discover Jesus. And then he does the rest, doesn't he? By the power of his Spirit. And it is so exciting. On last Sunday, I completely missed it. One of the new people who walked in, I'm like, oh, hello, da, 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 da. Found out, I do my little, who are you? Who do you look like? What are you doing? And then who can I link you to that's like that? So student, great, okay, come and meet this student, da, 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 da. Trottled off. And then another amazing girl was there, and she got talking to her and discovered that actually, first time ever in a church, didn't have a clue. I just thought, well, you've walked through the door, so you probably have some kind of faith, but none whatsoever. Didn't have a clue, had just walked in, sort of thing, and ended up in the middle of it all. And so she's then taking her to Alpha. But she didn't have a clue about anything. It was really, I just assumed, because I started doing that, oh, hello, who are you? Great, who can you talk to? Isn't that amazing? She just walked through the door. Even more exciting when people just walk through the door. They don't all walk through the door. So sometimes they will walk through the door, and sometimes we've got to walk out of the door and find wells to sit on. But when we do, to think, that's a right now statistic. In 2015, it was 1 in 5. It's gone up. That tells me that everything that's happened has made people more and more hungry to find out about Jesus. We didn't do spirituality, we did Jesus. So we asked them, do you want to know more about Jesus? Yes. Do you want to encounter Jesus? Yes. So the only way they're going to is if we find them, which means they're definitely out there, which is really exciting. So this amazing woman at the well, she then has her life totally transformed by Jesus, which is staggering and extraordinary. She goes and gets people and brings them back. And that is a sort of a revolution in that whole space and place, isn't it? As one person gets transformed, they transform others. And so my encouragement to you is, where are the wells where people are deeply thirsty? And we know they're deeply thirsty. We know that right now. And this is that time and place for us to push in and find them. And as church family, you've got something beautiful to offer. And it does mean... I was really struck the other day by 1 Thessalonians 2:8. It means sharing your very life. Paul said, I didn't just share the gospel with you, to the Thessalonians. I shared myself. I shared my very life. And I'm so excited that that's what you're looking at, because that is, I still believe, so powerful and so attractive in today's world right now. So I'm gonna pray for us. And Jesus, this amazing encounter that you had, a real encounter on a real well, on a day when you were tired and the sun was really hot. But you chose to speak out, to speak up. And you chose for that woman to have her life transformed on that day. Jesus, we long to see lives transformed. We long to see people encounter you. Lord, show us where we should sit. Show us where we need to be available, even when we're tired. Give us the words of life to speak. Give us the power of your Spirit, your living water, to share. Lord, thank you for this church, in this place, in this community, at this time, that you have called to be family. May many people come to know your fantastic good news and to discover what it means to share life together in this space and place with you right in the centre. So I pray, Jesus, that many, many women of Samaria will find their home in you and their home in this church family. And that you will do that by the power of your Spirit. And we all say, we're available to you, Jesus. Amen. Amen. And if you want to find out more about Hope, I'd love to have a chat. There's another great statistic in there about how many people just find Jesus through reading the Bible. So we're really passionate. We've got a contemporary version of Mark's Gospel. We're doing Luke for Christmas because it's really powerful. So there's just some amazing things that we can do together that will actually help people to meet Jesus for themselves. So I've loved being with you this morning.